don't hold yourself back by feeling ashamed for not knowing something. If you're going to try to get a PhD, these are just some things to keep in mind. All right? Learn about the process. The second thing that I didn't know was how much motivation that I was going to need in order to make progress on this degree. You have to have something within you that's driving you to finish this degree, to make progress on this degree. You're going to be alone a lot, sitting in silence, looking at your data, doing your research, and you're going to be studying things and thinking about things that nobody really cares about but you. You're preparing yourself to become an expert on a topic, and that's a lonely journey sometimes, and it's a slow journey. So you're going to need an intrinsic motivation, something in you that pushes you to keep going when you don't feel like it. And I've also found that you're going to need to find a motivation that might be beyond yourself. For example, toward the end of my degree, I had no motivation. I was so discouraged, I was so tired, but I thought about all of the sacrifices that my wife and my family had made for me to study, for me to go to class, for me to work on this degree. My wife was homeschooling our kids, even though I was the one who was supposed to be homeschooling them. I was the one who proposed the idea. I was the one who put together the proposal and the plan. And I homeschooled them for the first couple years, but I slowly pulled back because I was juggling so much and it was so overwhelming that my wife took over all of the responsibilities of homeschooling. And so I say this to say, toward the end, when I lost motivation, when the pressure was on, there were times when I gave up on myself. But I thought about my wife's sacrifice. I thought about my children. I was thinking about dropping out one time, and I told my wife, we were sitting at the dinner table, and I said, guys, I don't know if I can do this. I don't need this degree. I'm doing okay. I found articles, like 50 articles on why I didn't need a PhD. And my daughter looked at me. She was young. She was maybe 6 or 7 at the 7 at the time. She looked at me. She was so serious. You can't drop out. You can't drop out. She said, if you drop out, all that time you were away from us for class, for school, to read and to write, all of that time was wasted because you could have been spending time with us. She says, you have to finish. And so that gave me some motivation to keep going. But then toward the end, honestly, it was my wife. All of the sacrifices she had made for me. I just felt compelled to finish this degree. This is a degree for all of us. And I need to honor her sacrifice and her dedication to me and to our children and to our family. And so when you're doing something for yourself, sometimes you'll give up on yourself when times get tough. But when you're doing it for someone you love, it will help you find the motivation to keep going when you don't feel like it. Okay? Another thing that I wish I had known early on is how much discipline I was going to need in order to complete this degree. Okay, so I just talked about motivation. Motivation is good. It gets you started. But motivation is not enough to get you to the destination. You're going to need discipline. Discipline involves you sitting down, doing what needs to be done, even though you don't feel like it. In fact, your feelings don't even matter. Who cares how you feel? Do what needs to be done and don't complain about it. Just get it done. Just sit your butt down in that chair, at that desk, in silence with no distractions, and devote yourself to the task that you started. That's discipline. And what I found is the more discipline you have, the less motivation you need. Over time, doesn't even matter how you feel. You know what you got to do. Now, when you have deadlines, that helps. That gives you some motivation, the motivation and inspiration of desperation. But you're going to have to sit down and discipline yourself. I recommend you block out blocks of time, 2 to 3 hours, whole weekends. There were some days, some weekends where I would work from Friday night until Sunday night. There were some weeks I worked from Monday through Sunday. I mean, I would get up at 5 in the morning. I go to bed at like midnight, go to sleep, wake up 4:35, and I do it all over again because I needed to make progress on this degree. I needed to finish a paper, do some research, finish a field statement. Had I been more disciplined, I would have started this earlier. I had to learn to say no to things that I really wanted to say yes to. My wife and children, we'd be on vacation sometimes, and I'd really want to hang out with them. But because I had a paper due, because I had an assignment due, they would leave me at our hotel or at our Airbnb or wherever we were staying so I could work. And sometimes I'd be away from them for 2 or 3 days, just getting it done because I had procrastinated too long. And I was juggling a lot, so I give myself grace. But discipline is an inescapable must if you're going to get a PhD. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not about how you feel. It's about blocking time out to get it done. Another thing you're going to need is your family's support and understanding. I talked about my wife and my children supporting me, but you're going to really need your wife or your husband and your children to understand why you are doing what you're doing, why you're studying, why it's important to you, what it means to you, what it could mean for them. And you need to make that clear to them and make sure that they support you. Make sure that they have your back, because this is nearly impossible. I would say impossible to do on your own if you have a family. There's just no way. Like, your wife or your husband's going to get resentful. Because there were times my wife, she told me after I finished, there were times my wife wanted me to drop out. She didn't tell me. And when she told me, I was actually motivated. There were times when I was so discouraged and about to drop out that she inspired me and pushed me to keep going. But we were never discouraged at the same time, thank God. But you need your spouse's support. And so make sure you get their buy-in, make sure they understand what is going to be required of you, because it's a sacrifice not just for you, but it's a sacrifice that everyone in the family is going to have to make. And you need to decide if it's worth it to you. 12 years is a long time, guys. And the last thing I'm going to share with you is you're going to need the help of your advisors and your classmates. So there's just so much you don't know. And honestly, being the first person in my family to graduate from high school, first one to go to college, first one to get a master's degree, and the first one to start and finish a PhD, there were times when I was sitting in class when I felt like everybody knew stuff that I did not know. Like, they understood the process that I told you about. They understood how to do original research. They understood how to do all kinds of stuff. And I felt like I was embarrassed to admit that I didn't know those things in front of everybody, because I didn't want to reveal my ignorance, and I didn't want to confirm maybe some of the stereotypes they had about me as a black man. I didn't want to admit that I just didn't understand some things. You know, like, so often as black men, there's all kind of stigmas and stereotypes attached to us. And so I'm aware of those things. And so I want to be my best everywhere I go. I want to represent my people and my community well, with excellence. And so at times, however, that mentality held me back because I was too embarrassed to ask for help. I felt like if I asked my advisors or mentors or classmates for help, that they would judge me. But in actuality, I was judging myself. And my mentors and advisors have been nothing but supportive of me. My classmates have been nothing but supportive of me. But I had to swallow my pride and ask for help. And it was my advisors, primarily Dr. Craig Ott, who took the time to explain things to me, to give me feedback that helped me get something right, to figure something out, to improve something. In fact, when I began my PhD program, very first class I took was with him. And I turned in my final paper, and he was like, this is a okay master's paper, but a pretty bad, terrible doctoral paper. He says he didn't say it was terrible. I felt like he said it was terrible. That man helped me understand what doctoral writing looks like. Helped me learn how to write like a scholar, how to think like a scholar, how to evaluate and analyze material literature like a scholar. He's been so patient with me, so kind and encouraging to me. But I had to swallow my pride and ask him for help. And to be sure, I had to do all the work. But don't hold yourself back by feeling ashamed for not knowing something. They say the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. You know, I do think there are some stupid questions, but don't be ashamed to ask for help. Man, my mentors, my advisors, my committee members, and classmates have been wonderful. And I found out several of my classmates had no idea what they were doing either. And so we were able to encourage each other, and I was relieved, thinking that, man, they knew everything and I didn't know anything. No, they were asking me for help after I figured it out. And even now, some are still asking for help. And that's fine. There's a community of scholars in which we help one another so we can all grow and contribute to scholarship and new knowledge and all of that good stuff. But I didn't know those things, okay? So if you're going to try to get a PhD, these are just some things to keep in mind, all right? Learn about the process, recognize and get clear about your motivation, recognize and decide how disciplined you are and how disciplined you need to be. You're going to need just the support. You're going to need the support of your family, of your spouse, of your children. And don't be ashamed to ask for help when you need it. There's nothing wrong with you. Getting a PhD is not about intelligence only. You do need to have some intelligence, but it's really about perseverance. It's about pushing through when you don't feel like it and adding something new to scholarly conversations, participating, becoming a conversation partner with a community of scholars who are talking about the things that you're interested in, that you're studying, okay? Don't be discouraged, my friend. These are just some things to keep in mind. If you're thinking about getting a PhD, you can do it. But I didn't know these things. And if you have any questions, ask them in the comment section, and I'll either reply in the comment section or maybe I'll record another video to answer that question for you. But do me a favor, if this helped you in any way, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell so you can be notified when I upload new videos once a week. And I plan to answer your questions, address your problems, teach specific skills that you can use to reach, teach, and empower students in your life, or to help you just grow as a person. I want to share everything I know with you with the hopes that you don't have to go the long way to figure things out like I have. All right? Again, my name is Dr. Manuel Scott, and I thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next week.